I thank God for my friends and my advisors and folks who I can call on, because for the first, I'd say 18 months, it was such a challenge financially. I didn't know how to ask for money. I didn't know, and mind you, I initially raised $100,000, right? But, me asking for money or me even talking. Give me a countdown.
3, 2, 1.
Everybody doing? Jeff Lindor here, founder of the Gentleman's Factory. And, I really wanted to put this podcast together because now I'm over 5 years in entrepreneurship, full-time entrepreneurship. And people say, when you reach the 5-year cliff, then you should know what you're doing, right? Now, September 30th, 2016 was when I resigned from my career in public policy. And, I've been, and everything has been perfect ever since. Oh man, every door has been open and everything that I ever asked for. It was just so easy, right? These 5 years, man, it was so easy. I don't even remember what even happened because it was just so easy, right? Yeah, right. So it was the hardest 5 years I've ever had in my life, And, a lot of times people look at me and they say, oh, you know what? Like, I'm always smiling and I'm always happy. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever had a smile that was not authentic throughout this 5 years. Right. So that's what I can say that I'm blessed for. But at the same time, there were so many lows and lows and lows and lows. I would say that I thank God for every single, experience because it really made me stronger. So with this, I'm doing a podcast series, right, on my 5-year journey. And it's about 5 episodes, and we're going to be, just discussing my journey in 5 bullets, right? So every episode I'm going to, mention the bullets, right? Speak about the bullets. And I'm super excited to just get this rocking and rolling, and let's get started. All right. So this is the first episode, right? The first episode of this journey. And here's the thing, right? So I started this whole, Gentleman's Factory, concept came about when I was in graduate school. And in graduate school, I took a social entrepreneurship class where I wanted to change the world. And I built the model as to what my passions was. And I was passionate about fashion and passionate about community. And then I started this this concept called Groom Success. And for those who've been following my journey for a while, they remember Groom Success and all of the Groom Success events. I started Groom Success, and, we did our first gentleman's brunch, I think it was like in 2013 or so, right? And I wanted to bring some guys together. So, we did these meetups and these gentlemen's brunches where we focused on fashion and focused on community, and we had politicians come out, and it was, meetups, right? And our first one, we had, I think like 50, 60 guys, and they paid. And I'm like, oh, wait, brothers are paying to come to these events where, it's just us dressing up and, building together. So then, we would do more events and more events and more events. And then afterwards, it was in 2016 in June. And I did this event in downtown Brooklyn at this, space called the Dazzler and the Dazzler Hotel. And then, we had about like 300 guys there, right? And then they were all saying, hey, Jeff, what's next? What's next? Is this a hobby or is this an enterprise? And mind you, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just wanted to bring you guys together, Like, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm figuring this thing out, right? So then that's when, mentors of mine was like, listen, Jeff, but you have something here, but it needs your full attention. So I remember when I went to going on my first point, right? And I'll tell you the first point, but let me tell you this quick story. So then I go to Turks and Caicos, and it was my wedding anniversary. And then, I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, you know what? Like, Turks and Caicos is dope, but it's a really quiet country. And, you have the ability to think. And after Turks and Caicos, that's when I made the decision to resign from my career. So now point one, right? So point one is to have a spouse that will give you the time to mess up and make mistakes and figure things out. Because the thing is that you need time, right? You need time. You need time to figure it out. Like, most companies aren't, matter of fact, let me even back channel, right? Like, companies that are VC backed by tens of, millions of dollars still are figuring it out. Everybody is figuring things out, right? But specifically young companies. So imagine you're a young company with no money, right? And again, as I said, that I raised $100,000 to start off. But, I was competing with the WeWorks, the Wings of the world, right? Matter of fact, like I think the Wing didn't even start yet because it started out in 2016, et cetera. But, you needed time. And, like I want to give a huge shout out again to my wife, Deborah Patricia Olivia Lindor, right? Because she never really, made me feel like as though I was, inadequate. And what was crazy was that I actually made me feel inadequate, hoping that she then would then give that same energy, which would validate how I really felt inside. That was deep. Like, y'all should rewind that joint. And what was crazy was that I actually made me feel inadequate, hoping that she then would then give that same energy, which would validate how I really felt inside. Right. But yeah, seriously. But then she never really gave me that energy, and I appreciate her greatly for it. And, like the thing is that, like we're raising two children. And at the time, I think my son was about like 6 and my daughter was like 3, 4. So I have young children taking on this big step, this big leap of faith. And, again, like I was just figuring things out. I didn't have all the right answers. I just knew that I was building a community that was looking to move forward. And my wife, she held us down financially. She paid, I'd say like 85% of the bills. And, I just had to give in my like half of like the house expenses. And, sometimes I wasn't even able to do that. And she never made me feel like as I was crap. Right. So Black women really, are the bedrocks of our house, our household, our communities. And I can't thank her enough, yeah, like she's like the GOAT, right? Like the greatest of all times, right? And she gave me the time and space to mess up, to figure things out, and yeah, right. Like I owe a huge debt to her. And then also point number 2 is, have a circle of friends you can call when your account is a negative and you need a cash infusion. I'm going to say it again. Have a circle of friends you can call when your account is negative and you need a cash infusion, right? And I mean that with all sincerity. I thank God for my friends and my advisors and folks who I can call on, because for the first, I'd say 18 months, it was such a challenge financially. I didn't know how to ask for money. I didn't know, and mind you, I initially raised $100,000, right? But, me asking for money or me even talking about money was really taboo. And I had to unlearn a lot of things, right? So being Haitian and being, someone who comes from a family of pride, so I'm an immigrant and I came to this country at the age of 3 in 1989. Yes, do the math, my age. And with that, my parents didn't want to take food stamps, and they were like so prideful with the fact that they could do this on their own and, don't really ask for help, so to say, be strong, figure it out. And then to a certain degree, those attributes really did help me along the way in life from a number of things, right? Because I'm someone who can adjust to any situation. And I'm also someone who can just trailblaze through. And I said previously that I love to break through doors. But at the same time, though, you need help, right? And I'm building a community. So how am I building a community? And I can't do this by myself. I can't do this as an isolated individual. So then, so that $100,000 that I raised initially clearly did not last me more than, I got to check the account, maybe 3 months or so, right? Because I thought, I'm Jeff Lindor. I have so many friends and, I'm like, I had 300 people at my event, like a year ago. All of them are going to, spend money here or... Like, yeah, you need to nurture those things, and those things take time, right? And capital. And then what was also interesting too was Gentleman's Factory initially was a online store where I was selling ties, accessories, and like if I gotta be very transparent, I was just going on Alibaba and getting these lapel pins and just like, having a nice box and like shipping it out, just saying it's Gentleman's Factory or so, right? Shout out to anyone who ever bought a lapel pin or a pocket square from me. I don't even know if people still even wear lapel pins, right? I don't know. Like, I don't even wear them. But anyway, so that's what Gentleman's Factory was at its early iteration. So then when I resigned, I'm like, damn, how many of one of my good friends, James Destinas, who's actually not too far from me right now. He's James could probably listen in. James comes to me one day and then he says, yo, how many of these lapel pins are you going to have to sell, bro? For you to, pay this $5,000 a month rent, right? And I'm like, damn, so I'm doing the math. And, I was selling it for like $20 each. So in that, it was definitely a challenge, and financially it was bad. But again, going back to point number 2, and I'll say it again, have a circle of friends and supporters you can call when your account is negative and you need a cash infusion. So, my account was negative so many times, and I was telling someone this recently too, and I can speak comfortably about this because, look at my account now, right? You know what I'm saying? Hit me up 5 years later, right? But I want to give a huge shout out to Capital One. I had Capital One at the time. And I want to give a shout out to Capital One because of those insufficient funds fees. If I can be honest with you, I looked at those insufficient funds as, thank you for letting that payment go through, bro. I looked at the insufficient funds like a loan, right? I was like, thank you for having that rent go through. Having that, I'm telling you, the struggle is real. And again, I'm speaking very comfortably about this because I'm really comfortable in myself and I love the journey, right? And people need to listen to this and hear this. But then going back to friends and supporters, I remember this one individual, and I don't want to mention his name because I don't want anyone to, hit him up on LinkedIn and asking him for money, right? But so he initially invested capital into Gentleman's Factory when I first resigned from my career, right? And then, a couple of months later, matter of fact, like about 18 months later, he comes in to check up on me. He's like, yo, Jeff, man, like, how's it going, man? Just checking up on you, how was the first year? And then I said to him, it was really hard. It was really challenging. And then he says to me, well, so why didn't you call me? And I said, wait, how am I going to call you? Like I still, owe you money from when we first started. He said, okay, so what? Call me. If you're in need, call me. I said, huh? So, a couple of, I'd say months later, matter of fact, like a couple of weeks later, then I'm up against this $5,000 a month rent. And then I call him and he's like, so, like I have him on the phone and, he is like a really busy guy. So then he picks up and he's like, Jeff, hey, how's it going? And then I'm like, stuttering and like, I'm like, oh, well, right. So then he's like, hey, what's going on? Then I was like, well, stuttering. And then he then asked me, he says, so how much money do you need? Like, what's the number? What do you need? And I said, man, I need like $8,000 because that was for the rent from my home and also for the Gentleman's Factory. Yeah, people don't know this stuff, man. Yo, people see me smiling, right? People see the New York Times articles, all of that. Yo, the stuff, it's real, right? I needed money for my house and I needed money for the business simultaneously. So both was going to crumble if he did not step in. Yeah, it's real. People look at entrepreneurship like it's easy. It's not. So then, I said, I need about $8,000. He then says, all right, cool, man. Yo, meet me at such and such, right? So we went to, like I'll tell you for those who live in Brooklyn, Arch Diner. Right. So we went to Arch Diner in Canarsie area. Shout out to Canarsie. And, so we meet there and, the first thing that he does is he gives me the check, right? Writes it down. So he was like, okay, so like, who do you need? Wait, write out to you, Jeff, or the, I was like, yeah, man, write out to the company. So then that's when, he writes me the check. And then we have a 3-hour conversation afterwards. And we're just talking about life. And then we're talking about just like, I'm talking about like what I'm trying to do, etc. And then when I'm walking him to his car, he looks at me in the eye and he says, Jeff, you want to know why I was able to write this check without even blinking? Well, first he said, yeah, I ain't no ATM, right? But, like if you need something else, like we'll figure it out. But then he says, the reason why it is, I'm able to do this is because my relationship with $8,000 is different than other people's relationship with $8,000. Because he said it's within his capacity to write these kind of checks. So then he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, Jeff, you know what? I love what you're building. What I need you to do is to increase the capacity of the Black community, increase the financial capacity, the intellectual capacity, so that you can have, and the community can have, thousands of millions of people writing $50,000 checks. And I'm being very blunt, being very transparent. And I think that people need to understand and know these stories, because they're seeing a lot of the, really good things like the fancy articles. We have a new Gentleman's Factory location in downtown Brooklyn. Like we're buying a building somewhere in New York City within the next couple of months. We're expanding all across. We may look at London and Paris and Earth and space, all of that. But my account was negative mad times in 2016 and in 2017, right? But I could not have done this without my friends, my supporters, my advisors. And that's why with the current Gentleman's Factory location, it is named after all of our angel investors, right? So we have a number of rooms where it's named after them, right? And that is a sign of appreciation and gratitude because we would not be here if it hadn't been for them, right? So, again, man, like when you're in the entrepreneurship journey, it is not easy at all. A lot of things on Instagram, people are like, oh my God, like all you have to do is no, bro. Right? It's hard. It's hard. It's very hard. And, but again, continue to follow the journey. So just to recap on episode 1, in terms of what the points is point number 1, have a spouse that will give you time to mess up and to make mistakes and to have you just figure things out. And point number 2 is have a circle of friends you can call when your account is negative and you need a cash infusion. Signing off, Jeff Lindor. Episode 1 is a wrap. Let's build. Peace.